As an educator, I've had an opportunity to look at lots of IEPs and transition plans, and I wanted to talk today a little bit about the transition plans and share with you some of the observations that I've had. I consider myself a bit of a historian whenever it comes to transition plans because I get to look at transition plans not just in 12th grade, but also years after a student has graduated from high school and has entered the adult world. And I get to see what was planned versus how things played out for the individual afterwards. Hi, I'm Dr. Navarro. I work with students with disabilities and their parents, helping them prepare for a transition from high school to have the most positive outcomes possible. And so today, let's take a look at a transition plan. So the first section is the preferences, strengths, interests, and course of study. And of course, this is the foundational part of the transition plan. It is federally required. However, one of the things that I notice is that a lot of the assessments that are mentioned here are usually outdated or they're not age appropriate. They're not customized to the individual. Assessments need to happen frequently. Assessments should include the types of interest your son or daughter has, their work values, and also focus on aptitudes. But typically what you see in here is just an interest inventory. That's the most frequent one that's used because it's free, and so it's easy for the school to put in there. So it's really difficult to shape real goals without understanding work values, work interests, and also aptitudes or strengths and support needs. Another issue that I notice in this section is that the students' classes that they're taking don't always match their career path or the training path that they have. And so we have to have more input there to make sure that they're actually matching up. Uh, Typically, it just depends on what the school has available. And this is also an opportunity to really begin to look at what are some partnerships that the school has with technical schools or colleges for any type of dual enrollment. In this section, you should be checking with the school to make sure that things are evidence-based. You need evidence-based assessments that are administered yearly because our interests can change over time. And so to have very valid data, we have to make sure that those interests are looked at over the course of every single year. And we also want to make sure that any coursework that we're taking aligns with our interests and helps us prepare for our specific goal that we have. And we're going to talk more about that in some of the additional sections below. So in the next section, the education and training, this is specifically what post-secondary school, be it a technical school or be it a college that your son or daughter might attend in order to achieve their career goals. And this is a federally required section, but often the goals in here are very vague. They aren't always written in a way that is measurable or that is time sensitive. So you'll see the same goals kind of pervade every single year. If they add a goal on there for one year, you shouldn't see it the next year. These goals should build upon one another. One of the goals that I see in 12th grade sometimes is to investigate what it takes in order to get into a particular college. And the thing is, that is a goal for maybe 9th or 10th grade, 11th grade, but not for 12th grade. By 12th grade, we should be applying for colleges. We should be focusing on scholarships. We should really be moving into much deeper territory whenever it comes to that. One of the issues that I've seen here is there'll be things on here like will attend a school for 3D game design. And the issue is that the student on their transcript, they have no classes related to their particular career interests. So there are no classes related to technology, no classes related to art. And so this person really hasn't been prepared for this particular job goal, yet the job goal is listed on their IEP or on their transition plan. So researching what it takes to get into college really is more of a 8th or 9th grade goal that they would have focused on back then. and then they would have focused on some classes or coursework, joined some clubs that would have helped them be prepared for that particular thing. By the time we get to the 12th grade, we should be talking about, do I have a portfolio that will help me get into this particular program that I'm interested in? And a lot of times schools will just kind of be narrowly focused on the types of options that they see. So you have to make sure that you push the school to think of other options as well. Like they may assume that everybody does college and technical school, but maybe a trade school would be better. So making sure that the high school is considering all the options that are the best fit for the individual is important. And making sure that those goals are specific, measurable. For example, if they're going to complete a welding program, is it a 2-year program? That needs to be listed on there. And when are they going to start? Is that something they can start before they even finish high school? Because if they can begin to work on their education and training before they complete high school, that's a much better option. That's why you should be looking at things like dual enrollment at a technical school or at a college, whatever type of program fits your son or daughter's needs. Starting that while they're still in high school helps them begin that journey while they still have a lot of those supports. The next section is employment. Employment is federally required. It's a section that you will see a lot of broad goals, like to get a job, to be employed in a particular field. So sometimes you'll see in there to get a job in psychology. Well, psychology is a really broad field, and it really doesn't help us drill down to what specific area of psychology are we interested in. Because if we're interested in being a licensed professional counselor, then we're talking about going to get a master's degree after a bachelor's degree. We're talking about having to do practicum hours. We're talking about having to take a exam and also apply for state licensure. We have to be familiar with all those steps and make sure that we're aware of the level of commitment that we have, because plenty of people get psychology degrees and then they kind of have a failure to launch because they're not sure how that psychology degree is useful beyond just getting the degree. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. The other part is whenever it comes to employment doesn't just start after high school. Employment starts while you're in high school. So there should be work experiences while we're in high school. We're talking about jobs during the semester. We're talking about summer jobs. We're talking about work-based learning. So those are important things to have in place. Definitely assessments are useful for that, but actually job shadowing really helps more clearly define the type of work opportunities and the type of jobs that we're interested in. So we're making sure that we have some work-based learning to make sure that there is a good match for our interests. The next section is community participation. And community participation is not really federally required, but it is a best practice. So you may not see it on your IEP or your transition plan, but it is good to have on there because community participation is really some real world readiness. Interacting with other people gives our young adult a chance to learn more about themselves and how they kind of fit into the social stratosphere. This could include things like volunteering. It can include things like being part of recreational groups, any type of extracurricular activities. Those things are important. And so making sure that every semester there is some type of community involvement would be a benefit for your son or daughter. The next section is related services. And related services can include things like physical therapy, occupational therapy, counseling. It's important to be aware of the different adult community systems that can be useful for us once we leave high school, and also being able to articulate our needs in these services for the adult systems is really useful. And so in this section, it's really important to focus on building that type of understanding for your son or daughter, because in school, in high school, it's all provided for you. The way that school mandates work for uh, services for disabilities, the school is going to try to lay everything out, and there's less opportunity to self-advocate. But then whenever we're done with high school, then we have to do a lot of that on our own. So teaching students how to access these programs is an important part of making sure that services continue after high school. The next section is adult living skills. And so adult living skills, we're talking about being able to navigate systems like vocational rehabilitation or Medicaid, making sure that there are parts that bring those players into the meeting ahead of time. Because voc rehab, if you just wait till 12th grade, then you've missed out on some important assets that they could have provided earlier, specifically the pre-employment training that they can provide. They can provide something called pre-ETs, and that's something that you can get during your entire high school career. And those types of experiences kind of help our young adult understand the world of work and life beyond high school much more organically whenever they have access to that. So involving these other players helps with transition goals, helps to learn how to navigate these different support systems, and to make sure that there's a planned handoff beyond high school. Optimally, whenever high school is done, voc rehab would be there to be able to provide support with transition to college, or transition to a vocational program, or just support to find employment. The next section is daily living skills. And this is definitely a best practice. By far, this is the section that I see blank the most, but it includes things like budgeting, hygiene, meal prep, these things that are typically ignored by the school because they almost always don't have the bandwidth to support those particular things, and they really expect for those things to happen at home. So they're left out a lot of times, and because of that, we either have to advocate for our student in these meetings to make sure that some kind of training is being provided, or make sure that we're doing some type of informal teaching at home during the time that we have them with us. A lot of times the issues that are related to these sections, they won't come to be recognized until after our son or daughter is off to college or employed, or they're living on their own. And then we really begin to see a lot of the issues that we really should have addressed earlier, but we never really recognized them. In fact, as parents, sometimes we kind of accommodate their needs almost naturally, and so they never really grow in the way that they should in these areas. So we're talking about daily living goals. We're talking about teaching these skills systematically, recognizing what skills they would need to be successful adults, and giving them a chance to practice those things both at home, but then also in the community as well. And so those are really the main sections of the transition plan. Again, every transition plan in every state is going to have some things that are similar and some things that are different. And something to keep in mind, each transition plan will have some type of a section for transition activities and services. And you want to make sure that there's no copying from year to year without really identifying the types of progress that has happened or needs to happen. These goals should build upon one another. So that means that the goals for 12th grade should be built on the completed goals from 11th grade. The goals from 11th grade should be built on by the completed goals from the previous years. And so that way the document really is a living document, and there's actually some forward progress versus just making sure that there's a goal in there. We're not focused on compliance. We're focused on actually having results that bring us forward and get us more prepared for that transition from high school. And then in the section that says persons or agency involved, if you notice that a lot of it is just your student and the school, and you're not involved or other agencies aren't involved, that's definitely a problem too, because you should be involved. That helps you be aware, that helps you see where some of the areas that they're going to need your student will need more support in. It helps you understand how far they're advancing. So you should have an expectation that you impose upon the school that you are involved in some way, and how can they get you involved. It will be a bit of a challenge for them to understand how they can get you involved, but you want to be involved. And then even in some of these sections, like whenever we're talking about the related services or the post-school options, that's where you should have voc rehab involved early on. And it might even just be that they're on there to meet with your son or daughter for the pre-employment training. But the thing is, they should be on there. And then definitely by the 12th grade year, they should be coming to the meetings to participate and to be an active partner. Because if we wait until after high school graduation is over, then that means that you'll spend more time waiting for VR to get involved, because it's not a quick process whenever VR needs to meet with a client. It can take some time. Many VR case managers have over 100 to 200 people on their caseload. So you want to make sure that you start early, so that way you can be where you need to be whenever it comes time to graduate. And where you need to be is meeting with a VR counselor, talking about post-secondary options for education and training, and talking about employment. So those are the sections of our transition plan. And if you want to check in the description below, I have a couple of resources that are available for you to help you out in this process. And I appreciate your time. Thanks.